We're going to go straight on because he got a golden buzzer from Simon Cowell in his audition and then another one from Amanda Holden during Saturday night's semi-finals, which means that singer Matty J is heading to the Britain's Got Talent final.
Biggest reaction we've had from anyone.
He walked onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent in a borrowed suit, carrying 10 years of rejection, self-doubt and unfinished dreams. Then, in less than 5 minutes, everything changed. One performance of Prince's Purple Rain transformed an unknown Filipino singer into the most talked-about contestant of the season. But the story behind that golden buzzer is far deeper than the emotional television moment millions watched at home. Behind the standing ovation was a young man who had already failed publicly once, lost an entire career, rebuilt himself in another country, and quietly prepared for this exact moment for nearly a decade. The night the confetti fell. On the 28th of March 2026, a 27-year-old Filipino singer named Matty Juniosa stepped onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent and unknowingly walked into the defining moment of his life. At first glance, nothing about the audition seemed extraordinary. The judges, Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, Alicia Dixon, and Bruno Tonioli, expected another nervous contestant with a big dream and an emotional backstory. Matty appeared calm, respectful, and soft-spoken, but beneath that composure sat years of disappointment, rejection, and quiet frustration he had never completely escaped. Before the music even started, Matty admitted something brutally honest. He told the judges that most of his life had been shaped by one painful belief, that he was always destined to become the loser in every singing competition he entered. Not second place, not almost successful, the loser. The audience responded with sympathetic smiles while the judges nodded politely. They had heard speeches like this countless times before from hopeful contestants searching for one lucky break. Then the first piano notes of Prince's Purple Rain echoed through the theatre. Everything changed almost instantly. Instead of attacking the song with dramatic power from the beginning, Matty approached it differently. He sang softly, carefully, almost vulnerably, allowing the emotion to build gradually. The room became silent. Conversations stopped. People leaned forward in their seats. By the second verse, audience members near the front rows had already begun standing without even realizing it. The atmosphere inside the theater shifted from curiosity to complete emotional investment. As the performance moved toward the final section of the song, Matty finally unleashed the full strength of his voice. The theater erupted. The crowd rose to its feet. Even the judges looked stunned by what they were hearing. And then came the moment nobody expected. Before the song had even finished, Simon Cowell slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti exploded across the stage, while Matty was still holding the final note. The audience screamed. The judges stood clapping and cheering. Matty completely froze in shock, placing both hands on his head while staring upward as if he could not fully process what had just happened. In less than 5 minutes, a singer most viewers had never heard of became the very first golden buzzer act of the season. But what millions of people watching at home did not realize was this: the audition was not spontaneous at all. Matty had been preparing for that exact moment for years. The song choice was strategic, the emotional pacing was deliberate, even the restrained opening of the performance had been carefully planned. After years of losing competitions and rebuilding himself repeatedly, Matty no longer approached auditions emotionally. He approached them like survival, and for the first time in his life, every single piece of the strategy finally worked perfectly. The boy who never stopped moving. Long before Britain's Got Talent, long before the golden buzzer, standing ovations and confetti raining from the ceiling, Matty Juniosa was simply a boy trying to find his place while growing up across different parts of the Philippines. He was born in Quezon City, but stability was never really part of his childhood. His family moved constantly, taking him through Mandaluyong, Zamboanga, Cavite, Taguig, and even Tawi-Tawi, one of the southernmost provinces in the country. That detail matters more than most people realize because every move forced him to adapt all over again. Each new city meant another unfamiliar school, another group of strangers, and another attempt to fit into environments where he often felt out of place. For many children, home is one consistent location. For Matty, home kept changing. But through every transition, one thing remained steady: music. Singing became the only constant thread connecting every chapter of his life. By the age of 5, he was already performing at family gatherings, school activities, and anywhere people were willing to listen. Over time, music stopped feeling like a hobby and slowly became the center of his identity. When he attended St. Paul College of Makati, that passion became impossible to ignore. He joined the school choir and began competing in singing contests around the city. Friends later described him as someone who could never stop singing, even casually between classes. Hallways became practice rooms, classrooms became stages. Performing was no longer just something he enjoyed. It was becoming the thing that gave him confidence, purpose, and direction. After high school, Matty enrolled at De La Salle University, where he joined one of the school's respected vocal performance groups. For the first time in his life, he experienced performing before serious audiences in organized productions. Those moments changed the way he viewed himself. The dream of becoming a professional singer suddenly felt possible instead of distant. By 2018, he graduated from university and faced the same crossroads many aspiring artists eventually encounter. Choose security or chase uncertainty. Matty chose uncertainty. Instead of following a stable career path, he committed himself completely to music, believing that if he never fully tried, he would regret it forever. Within a year, that decision carried him onto the stage of Idol Philippines. Standing there, he felt as though everything in his life had finally led to that single moment. But what he did not yet understand was how brutally the dream he had spent years building was about to collapse in front of an entire nation. The first to fall. The first season of Idol Philippines premiered in 2019 and quickly became one of the biggest television competitions in the country. The judging panel featured some of the most respected names in Filipino music, including Regina Velasquez and Moira de la Torre. Thousands of hopeful singers auditioned from across the Philippines, all chasing the same dream of becoming the nation's next major star. Out of those thousands, only 69 contestants advanced beyond the audition stages. Matty Juniosa was one of them. For a young singer fresh out of university, simply making it onto national television already felt like validation for every risk he had taken. He had sacrificed stability, certainty, and a traditional career path to pursue music full-time. Now, standing under the bright lights of a nationally televised competition, it finally seemed as if all of those sacrifices had been worth it. Week after week, he survived the early rounds and eventually secured a place in the top 12 live performers. Then, everything collapsed almost immediately. Unlike ordinary talent shows, Idol Philippines depended heavily on public voting. Talent alone was not enough to survive. Contestants also needed popularity, visibility, and loyal audiences willing to vote consistently every week. Matty entered the live rounds at a major disadvantage. He did not have a massive social media following. He did not have a viral audition clip dominating the internet. And he did not yet have a dedicated fan base emotionally invested in his success. When the first live elimination results were announced, the numbers were brutal. Matty received the lowest overall score among the entire top 12 contestants, 50.5%, last place. In a single night, he became the very first finalist eliminated from the competition. The humiliation hit hard. While contestants like eventual winner Zephany Dimaranan continued advancing towards stardom, Matty quietly packed his belongings and disappeared from the spotlight almost overnight. Interviews from that period show him trying to remain calm and positive publicly, speaking politely about the experience and thanking supporters. But beneath that composure was a much darker reality. He genuinely believed his music career was finished before it had even properly begun. For many contestants, early elimination from a national singing competition becomes the end of the story. Public attention fades quickly. opportunities disappear. Networks move on to newer faces almost instantly. But strangely enough, losing Idol Philippines became the beginning of Matty's second life. Not long after the season ended, the same network that eliminated him unexpectedly offered him another opportunity. Producers grouped Matty with fellow contestants Lucas Garcia and Enzo Almario to form a vocal trio called Idols. Slowly, the group began building momentum through television appearances, live performances, and original music releases. For the first time, Matty experienced life as a professional recording artist instead of a struggling contestant. In 2020, he released his first solo single, Sayo na Talaga, marking a major personal milestone after the disappointment of Idol Philippines. Then something unexpected happened. In 2021, Idols released a song called Kapangyarihan. Years later, that same track would become the finale lip-sync song for Drag Race Philippines Season 2, one of Southeast Asia's biggest pop culture moments. The same voice that had once been rejected first on national television was suddenly being heard by millions across an entirely different audience. And just when it finally seemed like Matty's career was beginning to stabilize, he made a shocking decision. He walked away from everything he had spent years building, the one-way ticket to Scotland. In 2022, Matty Juniosa made a decision that shocked many of the people who had supported him since his days on Idol Philippines. He walked away from Idols. Not because the group failed, not because of internal conflict, not because of controversy or scandal. In fact, the trio was slowly gaining momentum, building a loyal fan base and securing more television appearances across the Philippines. For the first time in his life, Matty finally had something that resembled stability inside the entertainment industry, and then he left. The reason sounded almost unbelievable to some fans. Matty had received a partial scholarship to study musical theatre at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow. On paper, the opportunity was prestigious, but financially and professionally, the move looked incredibly risky. He already had television exposure, industry contacts, recording experience, and growing recognition in the Philippines. Starting over in another country meant abandoning years of momentum he had fought desperately to build. But internally, Matty felt trapped. Later, he admitted that losing Idol Philippines had affected him far more deeply than most people realized. Even after joining Idols and rebuilding his career publicly, a voice inside him constantly repeated the same painful message, that he would always fail major competitions when the pressure became real. The humiliation of being the very first finalist eliminated had stayed with him psychologically long after cameras stopped rolling. Moving abroad became about far more than education. It became an attempt to rebuild himself completely, so he packed his life into suitcases and moved to Glasgow with limited savings, a partially funded scholarship, and absolutely no guarantee that the gamble would succeed. The adjustment was brutal almost immediately. Scotland felt completely different from everything he had known in the Philippines. The cold weather, unfamiliar culture, different accents, and constant rain created an overwhelming sense of isolation during his early months there. In many classes, Matty found himself as the only Filipino student in the room. That loneliness weighed heavily on him, but financial survival created even greater pressure. The scholarship only covered part of his expenses, meaning he still needed to support himself while handling one of the most demanding performing arts programs in the world. To survive, he worked part-time as a waiter. Some days he carried trays and served customers during exhausting restaurant shifts immediately before rushing into dance rehearsals, vocal coaching sessions, acting workshops, and stage productions. His schedule became relentless, physically draining, emotionally exhausting. But despite the pressure, he refused to quit. And slowly, something began changing. The Conservatoire transformed him. Before Scotland, Matty primarily saw himself as a singer, but over time, the training reshaped him into a complete performer. He learned how to command a stage physically, emotionally, and theatrically. He performed in productions connected to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe and appeared in major musical theatre productions, including Kinky Boots and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. By the time he graduated in 2024, he had rebuilt himself artistically from the ground up. The insecure contestant who once believed he was destined to lose had evolved into a disciplined performer, capable of handling professional theatre at an international level. But reality struck again almost immediately after graduation. Despite earning a degree from one of the world's most respected conservatories, Matty still returned to waiting tables to survive financially. That detail matters because people often imagine artistic success as a straight line upward. In reality, Matty's journey became a cycle of rebuilding over and over again. Every time he thought he had finally arrived somewhere stable, life forced him to start from zero once more. And somewhere during those difficult years in Scotland, while balancing rejection, survival jobs, and quiet self-doubt, Matty Juniosa began preparing for one final gamble that would eventually change everything. The audition he designed to win. Between graduating in Scotland and auditioning for Britain's Got Talent, something about Matty Juniosa changed completely. He stopped behaving like a hopeful contestant chasing a lucky break. He started behaving like a strategist. For years, Matty had approached opportunities emotionally, relying mostly on talent, instinct, and passion. But after everything he experienced, losing Idol Philippines, rebuilding his confidence through idols, moving across the world to study in Scotland, and surviving financially while working restaurant shifts, he no longer viewed auditions the same way. He understood that talent competitions were not simply about singing well. They were about creating moments people emotionally remembered. So instead of randomly selecting a song he personally loved, Matty began studying Simon Cowell directly. He watched years of old interviews, judging clips, audition footage, and talent competition moments involving Simon. He paid attention to what genuinely moved him emotionally. Which performances made him lean forward, which songs softened his reactions, which contestants broke through his normally guarded personality. Eventually, Matty discovered something critical. Simon Cowell loved Purple Rain by Prince. That realization changed everything. From that moment onward, Matty built his entire audition around a single goal: make Simon Cowell feel something powerful enough to remember him instantly. Every creative decision became carefully calculated. The restrained beginning of the song, the emotional pacing, the fragile opening verses, the gradual escalation toward the explosive ending. Nothing about the performance was accidental. By the time Matty stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage in March 2026, he already knew exactly how he wanted the audition to unfold emotionally from beginning to end. And somehow, it worked perfectly. The moment Simon slammed the golden buzzer, Matty's life changed almost overnight. But what happened afterward online became even bigger than the audition itself. The clip spread through Filipino communities around the world at incredible speed. Former supporters from Idol Philippines reposted the performance alongside emotional messages apologizing for not supporting him enough years earlier. Fans of idols resurfaced old performances and interviews from the group's earlier years. Viewers of Drag Race Philippines suddenly realized the man standing on Britain's biggest talent competition stage was the same vocalist behind one of their favorite finale lip-sync songs. Across hospitals, restaurants, cruise ships, call centers, construction sites, and overseas Filipino communities around the world, Matty's audition spread rapidly through private messages, Facebook groups, TikTok clips, and family chats faster than many British viewers could fully understand. Without planning it, Matty Juniosa became something larger than just another contestant. He became a symbol of persistence. Because beneath the golden confetti and standing ovation sat a much darker story most audiences never see behind talent competition success stories: rejection, humiliation, loneliness, migration, financial struggle, body image battles, years of rebuilding emotionally after public failure. At one point, Matty openly admitted he weighed more than 240 pounds and struggled deeply with his self-confidence after Idol Philippines. Instead of giving up, he rebuilt his health, rebuilt his confidence, rebuilt his career, then rebuilt it all over again after moving to another country where almost nobody knew his name. And perhaps that is why the audition connected with so many people emotionally. Not because every note was technically perfect, but because audiences could hear the weight behind the performance. They could feel that this was not someone casually chasing fame or internet attention. Matty sounded like a person carrying years of disappointment, sacrifice, and quiet determination into a single moment. He did not sing like someone hoping to win. He sang like someone refusing to lose again. Today, Matty Juniosa stands at the edge of the biggest opportunity of his life. From becoming the first contestant eliminated on Idol Philippines to earning the first golden buzzer of Britain's Got Talent 2026, his journey has become proof that failure is not always the ending people believe it to be. Behind the viral audition was a much deeper story built on years of sacrifice, rejection, loneliness, financial struggle, and rebuilding himself quietly while almost nobody was watching. What audiences saw on television lasted only a few minutes, but the road leading to that stage stretched across years of disappointment, uncertainty, and constant reinvention. Matty rebuilt his confidence after public elimination. He rebuilt his career after leaving the Philippines, and he rebuilt his entire identity while studying and working abroad in Scotland. Now the pressure grows even larger. The live semi-finals will determine whether Matty is simply one unforgettable audition story or a genuine star capable of carrying an entire season. One performance already changed his life forever. The next performance could change everything else. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories behind the headlines.